We move to the next panel. Yeah.
And yes, my name is Christian. I was invited today. I'm here from Aarhus, also a couple of institutions here, and I would like to invite up our next panel. It's I can start with you, Andrew Perkins. You're from the NTNU, and we spoke a little bit earlier today. You have many years working with the coupling of technology and space, you could say, and also water technologies these days. Yes, and we have Thea from Herning, Sustainable Herning, and you've also been working in other another hub, I heard, within sustainability. And we have Gustafsson from Uppsala University, and you've worked many years with the Heritage and also the Commission. And so we are here today. We have Roxana also with us, not to forget, from our City of Aarhus network. And actually, you also work. We have a project together at the moment, actually, Roxana, and our culture center here in Aarhus. So you also work a bit with the, you could say, connection between social and sustainable agendas. So today we will try to have a little, or just for this session, we'll have a little discussion on the relationship between green and social innovation. And we will try to start with an opening question. If you can mention, maybe I would like to start with you, maybe, Thea. You could mention just a small example from you where you had some partnership between green innovation that also had a social impact, or vice versa.
Yes, I can give an example where we work with both sides of sustainability, and also a bit of how I see them interlink, because I think they do interlink, and I think we're not necessarily tapping the full potential of the interlink between the social and the green innovation when we talk about sustainability. The case that sprung to mind was we worked with the World Championship in horse equestrian riding here in Herning last year. They came to us about half a year before the actual event, which was a mega event with 200,000 participants and audience coming to Herning, which is a much smaller city. So there was a large influx of people, and that always created a bit of attention. They came to us and they had the desire to create the most sustainable horse world championship ever. And we found a couple of good initiatives for them to work with. And then we worked with the transformation of those green initiatives towards a sustainable social solution in the local area. So for instance, we mapped out where would their largest impact be, and it was not on transportation, which might be something that everyone thinks about. It was actually in the sand, in the filling of the areas, and we succeeded in handing those sands out to local small clubs and football clubs and horseback riding clubs and everywhere in the large area of Herning, which created a good solution for the local community, because they would never ever have been able to buy that kind of sands for their smaller clubs, sports clubs. So a green solution, but also a social solution.
And I suppose that it's difficult to do some kind of sustainable development or innovation without having a social part as well. But maybe Andrews, you will give us an example also. I know you brought the.
Well, being from the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, it's a very engineering-heavy university. So if you say green innovation, everyone would think of large engineering digital transformation projects, like electrifying the Norwegian oil and gas sector. We also have a very different approach. We have been working a lot with a term called green media. And green media we developed through a ecosystem of media labs in Trondheim. Green media came to then the attention of NRK, which is the equivalent to Danish radio. And they started looking at these large sports events, because they produce a lot of large sports events, specifically winter sports, cross-country skiing, and all these fantastic, interesting sports. And found out that if you exchange the two helicopters with drones, it actually reduces the carbon footprint a lot, because they use a lot of helicopters in winter sports. If you tune down the production a little bit, you can have less trucks, less traveling. But more importantly, also, if you look at the maybe social impact of it, if you say that the average TV watcher of cross-country skiing is me, we don't really reach the young people at all. How about them shifting production from the TV and the old flat linear to the mobile platform, making it more diverse, making it more interactive, making it simply smaller, and that again also reduces carbon footprint. And then just quickly, another example is that we looked at this, creating awareness amongst people and amongst you of the actual carbon footprint when you get a video in your face on a web page, on a news web page, or whatever, TikTok or whatever social media are in. This video is an enormous consumption of energy. And is it really necessary? I didn't ask for it. I get it in my face. That's why we call it media in your face. We can get that away, make profiles a little bit. I don't want these videos in my face. I want some textual description. I want it simpler and small media. In comparison to what we've been doing the last 10 years, large screens, huge resolution in the cloud, stored everywhere. These are a few examples of green media.
Could you lend us an example also?
Yes, I think coming from the university, I think this goes for more or less all universities in Europe today. It's more or less all researchers are involved in this field. I mean, the link between the green and the social information. And we at the university, we have also special programs in heritage and sustainability and PhD schools and such. So, I will just give one of the examples, which I think has been very interesting for me. I've been involved. It is it's actually two Horizon 2020 projects, and one of the cases is the small village abandoned industrial villages with just an older generation living there. The young one has left and so on. But we started to see. Our starting point was to see how we can preserve the heritage, but it started, of course, to include people. And we start to see if we can also find new jobs for these young people so they can stay, or if they can move to this small town. And so we start what we call the circle listening models workshop to see if we can start from the very bottom, and everybody in the village can come with ideas, and we help them and coach them to see that if that was something that we can help them with. And we also try to squeeze them into the circle business. So it was not just the ordinary coffee shops or whatever. It could be coffee shops, of course, because coffee is good. But in this case, we wanted to see if we could not just sit down and see the job create, but it could also be in line with this. So we had some new ideas to see if we can take care of the waste from the forest industry and see if we can produce new material for replacing the plastic bags and things like that in a heritage building, which also give new jobs. But now what's happened, and this planning was also, of course, linked to both to the local and district development strategies and sustainable strategies, and also to the regional development strategies and small specialization strategies and so on, which we thought was extremely interesting and important. But what's happened now is maybe more interesting, and we haven't started a research project yet, but this is a part of Sweden, close to Gothenburg, but yet more or less the land. What happened now is that they will invest tons of billions in Sweden's biggest battery factory. For you understand why, which maybe it's good. But what happened now is in this small villages, it will come approximately 5,000 construction workers for 1 or 2 years to build it, and after that, of course, they need people to work, and they cannot find it. And it will be I don't think it will be a collapse, but what we see now is if we can take our culture plan, which we already conducted, and see how we can shape it into this new circumstance, because this is completely new for us. And I think it's also completely new to see how culture and creative industries could be part of this transformation with suddenly 5,000 inhabitants in a small town, which today maybe just have a couple of months. So this to be continued.
Yes. We will come a little bit back to the role that creativity can actually play to promote green innovation. But Roxana, also, would you like to give us a small example?
Sure. Yeah. So at Transeuropal, I actually lead our sustainability priority, and we look at this across the network in kind of a holistic way. I think it goes very much together, sustainability and people, basically. So we have a lot of initiatives on different levels. And I have a lot of ideas about what can be done and what cannot be done. I'm going to mention one project just because of time. And this is a Creative Europe funded project, actually, called Rebuilding to Last. And it is a project through which we're trying to help leaders and the staff of cultural centers across Europe lead sustainable transformation of their buildings by also involving the local communities in the process. So it is very much based on participatory interventions, architecture interventions. So, for example, one of the things that we've done a couple of weeks ago in Aarhus at the Institut for X was to kind of look at what can be transformed on the site of the cultural center, what they would like to see involved, and how we can get people to basically get their hands dirty and be part of it. And I think engaging people in these processes is really what kind of leads to a long-term transformation, because it kind of gives people accountability in a way, and it gives people a sense of ownership of the process. So we've done this. I mean, it's been done many times in our network, you know, in the past, in other places as well, like in Italy and in Greece. So this is one project, of course. I think it's one of many. I think it's important to keep in mind that when it comes to like transition towards sustainability and kind of fighting climate change in general, often the people that are usually forgotten or that are left out are the most marginalized communities. So I think there's a question there about what social innovation really needs to be, whether it is a digital, there is a digital aspect to it, whether there is a purely scientific, let's say, framework to it, or whether it needs to be something that's very much in aligned with inclusivity and diversity.
Thank you. And of course, we've been touching a bit upon it now, the role of creativity or culture in promoting green transitions. But maybe I would also like to move on a little bit to the third question that we're starting to get into as well, which is when we talk about also this creative placemaking, so the role of culture and creativity in creating places. And this is an open question for any of you guys who can take the floor. What can be this decisive contribution that we're talking about? What is the real potential actually of this creative understanding, the cultural creative potential of places in creating climate awareness and simply like social equality? So on the social and the climate. Sorry, it's a very complex question, but I think you get me.
I can try.
Yes.
Just to build upon what you said about the heritage, I think it's always extremely important to kind of have this the sense of place and go into the heritage. And then we need to use the imagination, which is where the creative and the cultural aspect comes in, because we need to tap deep into the roots and then give it a new vector. And we need to use our imaginations and apply in a very inclusive manner and in a very diverse manner, We need to find the new stories for the places, and we need people to tap into them, because if they don't tap into them, and they will only tap into it if we have been respectful and taking a good rooted offset, then we can move them into a future, a new more sustainable direction. And I think this is so important. I work with developing another platform for collaboration with a industrial park focusing on energy and P2X, and that they have the problems of an outskirt area. So there was like high employment, lots of youth, and all the normal stuff. And we succeeded in kind of tapping into the roots of production Denmark, giving them a new story that they could also be someone who contributed to the green transformation. And we succeeded in creating a platform of collaboration where the civic societies, the smaller communities, they also saw themselves as playing a part in it. So for instance, they took on the role as a visitor center, so they were driving the visitor center instead of the core team. Also, they took on the role of participating positively in the public hearings regarding solar panels, wind turbine, and so forth. So I think you can really succeed in creating a new vector for a more sustainable future, but only if we kind of dig into the roots of the cultural heritage. And I think this is where the creative and the cultural impact needs to be used.
I think that's very true, and I would just like to voice a sort of very high level interpretation of this. I think we're facing challenges that are extremely complex. And complexity, there are a few tools you can use to untangle complexity. One is using storytelling. And then the other one is a term we've used a lot in my lab. It's arts as an enabling technology, which brings us to the complexity. We need art, technology, and digital humanities. Basically, we need them all. It's then very important that when we address creative and cultural sectors and creativity, it's very important that, let's say, the arts community don't coin the term, because they don't own the term. The term is very much used in engineering as well. You know, all engineers will say they're creative. All accountants will say they are creative. Everyone's creative. So we need to make sure that we have a narrative that supports the synergies. And we need to then onboard. I think it's very important to be open and transparent, onboard. And if we can onboard them into an environment which we've discussed, it's safe, it's a pitch environment, which all these areas in themselves are very used to, but in the silos. So the talk we had here about getting the silos to move together is at the essence of untangling this complexity. So I think that's a challenge. If we can do that, if we can use our understanding of the cultural heritage as a driver, we can use arts as an enabling technology, and then we can take all the creativity from engineering, mash it all up, we might be able to do something.
And I think it's really interesting to hear also, because it goes to which kind of partnerships and which kind of constellations do we need to make happen in order for this cross silo meetings to actually happen. Yeah,
I think I think there is a couple of important platforms, if you use that word. And but one of the most important in Europe and India is, I think, the regional innovation strategies for smart specialization and sustainable strategies, which are the kind of foundation for the structural funds, which means it's approximately 1/3 of the budget. So now we speak about real money coming from the which can support them. So if you look upon these smart specialization strategies, and we conducted a study of it, and we went through all of these strategies in Europe, approximately 160, 170 in the different European regions. Only 14 give priority to culture. So less than 10%. So this is a homework for us to do. How can we implement, take place in the regional specialization strategies. And I don't believe it's kind of stupid politicians. It is us that can make that change. And another, also maybe more important platform is called the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2030. And I have a slide of this tomorrow, but I give you a teaser. And you know that culture is mentioned. 11.4 say that we shall preserve culture and nature heritage, which is fantastic. But what I think is of more interest, it took almost 50 years to reach that position. The first international environmental strategy was in Stockholm in 72, and at the same time we had the UNESCO. So it took 50 years. And now the only indicator for this was the cost of culture heritage to take care of this. So the indicator was cost to the society, and that is something that is wrong, because it's obviously an investment. So now we can calculate the return on investment, and that is the green part. That is the social aspect, there is the environmental aspect, and if you want also the economic aspect. So two important platforms that we need to make a change.
And I think we're on 1 minute time, so I think to give Roxana a small chance to give your input. Closing remarks.
What I want to say is that I fully agree with I not fully agree, but I feel like the indicators that we have on a global framework right now are maybe not necessarily fit for purpose from a human-centric way and for the cultural sector in itself. And I think what we should also look at is sort of the intangible part of cultural heritage, and to look at native practices and local practices and sort of the knowledge that's been gathered throughout the centuries that maybe is quite relevant when it comes to sustainability, but maybe is set aside or forgotten or, you know, not promoted anymore. So that's just, let's say, my plea to conclude the conversation.
All right. Thank you very much.